They found Melissa's body in the walk-in freezer at 4:47 a.m. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. Just a glimpse as they wheeled her out, the black body bag stark against the yellow tiles of our McDonald's kitchen floor. Manager Dave had called us all in early that morning, his voice thin and cracking over the phone. "Emergency staff meeting, 5:30 a.m., he'd said. "Mandatory." I've worked at the McDonald's off Route 23 in Delaware, Ohio for 3 years now. It's just a 10-minute drive from my apartment near Ohio Wesleyan University, where I'm slowly chipping away at a business degree I can't afford. Most of the time, it's just another fast food joint. Greasy floors, temperamental ice cream machines, and the endless beeping of fryers. Until 2 weeks ago. That morning, we all sat in silence in the dining area, the unopened store eerily quiet, without the normal breakfast rush. Dave's eyes were bloodshot, his typically pristine uniform rumpled like he'd slept in it, or hadn't slept at all. "Melissa Martin was found deceased in our walk-in freezer early this morning," he announced, his voice clinical, detached. "Police are investigating. They don't suspect foul play. The restaurant will remain closed today." But I knew that was bullshit. We all did. The freezer door doesn't lock from the outside, and Melissa knew that kitchen better than anyone. She'd worked here for 7 years. 2 days later, corporate sent a regional operations specialist named Richard Greer. Tall guy, expensive suit, with a smile that never reached his eyes. We reopened, and he gathered us for another meeting before the lunch rush. "In light of recent events," he said, handing out laminated cards to each of us, "we're implementing new operational guidelines, safety procedures, if you will." The card had 7 rules printed in red text on a white background. Simple McDonald's logo at the top. They looked official enough, but I'd worked here long enough to know this wasn't standard corporate material. "These rules are non-negotiable," Greer continued. "Follow them precisely. Your safety depends on it." I looked down at my card. McDonald's location number 4873, night shift safety protocols. All registers must be closed exactly at midnight, not before, not after. If a customer orders a meal that isn't on the menu, politely decline. Do not attempt to fulfill special requests after 11 p.m. The bathroom doors must remain locked between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. If someone asks to use them, direct them to the gas station across the street. If the drive-thru speaker activates without a car present, do not respond. Reset the system immediately. Never enter the walk-in freezer alone between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. If you hear your name called from the kitchen when no one is there, do not answer. Continue your tasks as normal. If a child enters alone after midnight, call the manager immediately. Do not interact with the child. I looked up at Greer, then at my co-workers. Some looked confused, others nervous. Mike, our night shift supervisor, was staring at his card like it might bite him. "This is bullshit," he muttered. "What happened to Melissa was an accident." Greer's smile tightened. "These are simply precautionary measures, Mr. Sullivan. Corporate takes employee safety very seriously." I wanted to ask questions. We all did. But something in Greer's expression stopped me. The way he was looking at us wasn't right, like he was measuring us for coffins. "One last thing," he added as we prepared to open. "These rules are confidential. Do not discuss them with customers or anyone outside McDonald's employment. Violation of these protocols is grounds for immediate termination." The way he said termination sent ice through my veins. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've worked 6 night shifts, and I've followed every rule to the letter. The others have too, though no one talks about it. We just exchange glances when something strange happens, like when the drive-thru speaker crackles with static at 2 a.m. with no cars in sight, or when we all hear someone calling from the empty kitchen. Last night was my night off. This morning, I learned that Katie didn't show up for her shift today, and tonight, I'm back on the register. Hello, viewers. If you wish your stories or experiences to be narrated by me, share them on our own subreddit, which you can join from the description below. I will pick the stories from the community and narrate them, and every once in a while, we will host a 3-hour story compilation. My name is Alex Chen. My mom's from Columbus, dad's from Taiwan. That mix makes me stand out a bit in Delaware County, but most people are decent about it, at least to my face. Tonight's shift started like any other. I clocked in at 8 p.m., nodded to Trent, the acne-scarred high school senior working the drive-thru, and grabbed my red visor from the hook by the time clock. The early evening rush had died down, leaving that strange liminal period before the drunk college kids and insomniacs started filtering in. "You hear about Katie?" Trent asked, voice low despite the empty restaurant. I nodded, adjusting my name tag. Dave said she called in sick. Bullshit. Trent leaned closer. Mike said her roommate came in looking for her this morning. Said Katie never came home after her shift. My stomach twisted. Maybe she stayed at a friend's place. All her stuff's still at home. Her car's still in the parking lot at Target. Target shared our lot, just across the entrance to the shopping center. I was about to respond when Dave emerged from the back office, circles under his eyes darker than yesterday. Behind him was Mike, looking nearly as rough. Their matching McDonald's polos were impeccably clean, but there was something disheveled about them both. "Alex? Register 1. Trent? You're on drive-thru until close," Dave said, his voice clipped. "What about Katie?" I asked before I could stop myself. Dave's eyes flicked to the clock, 8:17 p.m., then back to me. "Police are handling it. Not our concern right now." "But..." "Register 1, Alex," Dave repeated, walking away before I could press further. For the next hour, I took orders from the trickle of customers coming through. An elderly couple sharing a coffee, a mom with 2 cranky kids, a group of teenagers splitting an order of fries, normal people doing normal things. It almost made me forget what had happened to Melissa, what might have happened to Katie. Around 9:30, an old man in a shabby brown coat came in. Nothing unusual about him except his eyes, so pale blue they were almost white. He ordered a big knock, no pickles, and sat at the corner booth by the window, staring out into the darkening parking lot. At 10:47, I looked up from wiping down the counter to see him still there, food untouched, eyes now fixed on me. When our gazes met, he smiled. Something about that smile made my skin crawl. "Bathroom key?" he asked, suddenly standing right at the counter, though I hadn't seen him move. I handed him the key attached to the large plastic spoon, standard procedure. He took it, fingers brushing mine, cold as ice despite the warm May evening. "Thanks, Alex," he said, though I didn't remember telling him my name. I glanced down at my name tag. Of course. That explained it. When I looked up, he was gone. The bathroom key sat on the counter where his hand had been. I hadn't heard it being set down. The night dragged on. At 11:30 p.m., Dave announced last call for the dining area. The few remaining customers filtered out, leaving just us employees and the hum of equipment. Through the windows, I could see cars occasionally pulling into the drive-thru, where Trent's voice crackled over the speaker. 11:55 p.m. I started the closing procedure for my register, careful not to actually close it yet. Rule 1 was clear. All registers must be closed exactly at midnight. Not before, not after. Trent appeared beside me, visibly nervous. "You remember all the rules, right?" I nodded, eyes on the digital clock above the fryer station. 11:57 p.m. "Something's off tonight," he whispered. "That old guy who was here earlier? He left his coat." "So?" Put it in lost and found. I did, then went to the bathroom. When I came back, it was on the counter again. Trent's voice shook slightly. And Mike said he saw someone standing by Katie's car last night when he left. Said they looked like they were waiting for something. 11:59 p.m. I tapped the register screen, readying the closing procedure. Just follow the rules, I hissed. That's all we have to do. The clock hit midnight, and I closed my register, the mechanical ka-chunk oddly final in the quiet restaurant. Trent did the same with register 2. Through the drive-thru window, I could see the empty lane, bathed in sickly yellow light. Dave emerged from the back, keys jingling. Night crew's here. Front doors are locked. Drive-thru only until 2 a.m., then kitchen clean until 5. Night crew consisted of Mike, Jasmine, and Ryan, the newest hire who'd started after Melissa's death. None of them looked happy to be there. I was grabbing my backpack from the break room when Jasmine cornered me, her tight curls pulled back under her McDonald's cap. She'd been working here even longer than Melissa had. "Alex," she whispered, dark eyes darting toward the door to make sure we were alone. "I found something in Melissa's locker. Dave never cleaned it out." She pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. "I've got to get to the kitchen. Just be careful, okay?" Before I could respond, she was gone. I unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. It was a handwritten list. The same 7 rules we'd been given, but with an 8th rule scrawled at the bottom in different handwriting. Number 8. If you see a McDonald's employee you don't recognize, especially near closing time, leave immediately. Do not finish your shift. Below that, in desperate, heavy strokes that had torn through the paper in places, "They're not people." That's when I heard it. My name, called softly from the kitchen. No one was supposed to be in there yet. They were all still in the staff meeting with Dave. "Alex?" The voice called again, a perfect imitation of Jasmine's whisper. "Can you come help me for a second?" I froze, Rule 6 burning in my mind. If you hear your name called from the kitchen when no one is there, do not answer. Continue your tasks as normal. I shoved the paper into my pocket and walked out the opposite door, toward the front of the restaurant. I clocked out without looking back. In the parking lot, I realized I'd forgotten my jacket inside. It wasn't cold enough to need it, but my car keys were in the pocket. I'd have to go back inside. I stood in the dark parking lot, staring at the illuminated McDonald's sign. Behind the glass doors, I could see movement. Jasmine wiping down tables. Mike restocking the condiment station. Normal closing tasks. Nothing to suggest anything was wrong, except that voice had definitely called my name from an empty kitchen. My car keys were in my jacket pocket, and my jacket was hanging in the break room. I'd have to go back inside. I pulled out my phone and called my roommate, Jake. No answer. I tried my other roommate, Liz, same result. It was a Thursday night. They were probably out at the Jug, the bar near campus, where everyone went for cheap beer night. I wasn't about to call an Uber to take me the 3 miles to my apartment, not with what little money I had left until payday. I needed those keys. As I approached the doors, I noticed a figure standing by the side of the building, half hidden in shadow. Just the outline of a person, unmoving, watching. My pulse quickened. I raised my hand in an awkward half wave, but the figure didn't respond. Probably just someone waiting for the bus, I told myself. The Columbus COTA line had a stop right at the edge of our lot. I tapped on the glass door. Mike looked up, annoyance flashing across his face before he recognized me. He came over, security fob in hand. "Forgot my jacket," I explained as he opened the door just wide enough for me to slip through. "My keys are in it." Mike nodded, distracted. Up close, his face looked waxy under the fluorescent lights, like he hadn't slept in days. Make it quick. Dave's on edge tonight. The restaurant felt different now, colder somehow, despite the kitchen equipment still running. The overhead lights had been dimmed for closing, casting long shadows across the dining area. The burger and fries smell that usually permeated everything had been replaced by the sharp chemical scent of cleaning supplies. I headed for the break room, my shoes squeaking against the freshly mopped floor. As I passed the kitchen, I deliberately kept my eyes forward, not wanting to see if anyone, or anything, was in there waiting to call my name again. The break room was empty, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. My jacket wasn't on the hook where I'd left it. Looking for this? I spun around. Dave stood in the doorway, my black jacket draped over his arm. His face was impassive, but something about his eyes made my stomach drop. "Yeah, thanks," I said, reaching for it. Left my keys in the pocket. He didn't hand it over. Instead, he closed the break room door behind him with a soft click. "You know, Alex, you're one of our best employees. Punctual, reliable, good with customers." He laid my jacket on the break table. "But I'm concerned about some of the questions you've been asking. About Melissa. About Katie." I swallowed hard. I was just worried. Katie seemed fine yesterday. Dave's expression didn't change. "We all have to follow the rules, Alex. All of them. That's what keeps us safe." "I do follow them," I insisted, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Then why did Jasmine give you that paper?" My blood went cold. He'd seen her pass me Melissa's note. I said nothing, which was apparently answer enough for Dave. He sighed, suddenly looking every bit his 40-something years. "You remind me of Melissa, you know. Smart, observant. She asked questions too." The past tense wasn't lost on me. "I've worked here a long time, Alex. Seen employees come and go. The ones who follow the rules stay. The ones who don't." He trailed off, then pushed my jacket toward me. "Get your keys. Go home. Come back for your regular shift tomorrow, and we'll forget this conversation happened." I grabbed my jacket, quickly checking that my keys were still in the pocket. They were. "One more thing," Dave said as I turned to leave. "If corporate calls you about Katie, you don't know anything. She didn't show up for her shift. That's all." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Good. Oh, and Alex, check the customer bathrooms before you go. Make sure they're empty so we can lock them. Rule 3, you know." It wasn't my job to check the bathrooms. That was always a manager's responsibility. But I wasn't about to argue. I just wanted out of there. The men's bathroom was empty, just the steady drip of a leaky faucet echoing off the tiles. I pushed open the door to the women's bathroom, calling out, "Maintenance? Anyone in here?" As was protocol. No answer. I stepped inside, quickly checking the 2 stalls, both empty. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye, a small dark stain on the floor by the sink. It could have been anything, soda, coffee, mud, but something about it made me lean closer. It was red, brownish red, and it trailed toward the air vent near the floor. My heart pounding, I followed the trail with my eyes. The vent cover was slightly ajar, as if someone had tried to close it in a hurry. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone and snapped a quick picture of the stain in the vent. That's when I noticed the silence. The usual background noise of the restaurant, sizzling grills, humming fryers, the constant low chatter of employees, had stopped. The only sound was the dripping faucet behind me and my own shallow breathing. I stood up quickly, nearly slipping on the wet floor. As I steadied myself against the sink, I caught my reflection in the mirror and froze. Someone was standing behind me, a woman in a McDonald's uniform, her back to me, standing absolutely still in the last stall. The door was open now, though I was certain I'd checked it moments ago and found it empty. She had dark hair pulled into a ponytail, just like Melissa's, just like Katie's. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. In the mirror, the woman's head began to turn, slowly, unnaturally, like her neck contained too many vertebrae. I didn't want to see her face. Every instinct told me I shouldn't see her face. I bolted for the door, not looking back. In my panic, I slammed into someone in the hallway. Ryan, the new guy, carrying a mop and bucket. "Whoa, easy," he said, steadying me. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "There's someone in there," I gasped, pointing at the bathroom door. Ryan frowned, peering past me. "In where?" I turned. The bathroom door was closed, the out of order sign hanging on it. But I'd just been in there. I hadn't closed the door. I just checked the bathroom," I stammered. "There was someone—" "Can't be," Ryan said. "That bathroom's been closed all day. Plumbing issue." He gestured to his mop and bucket. "I'm actually supposed to be cleaning up a leak in there." I stared at him, then at the door. "But Dave just asked me to check." "Dave left 20 minutes ago," Ryan interrupted, brow furrowed with concern. "Said he wasn't feeling well. Mike's in charge tonight." I backed away, my thoughts spinning. Dave had just been talking to me in the break room. He'd given me my jacket, told me to check the bathrooms, unless it wasn't Dave. If you see a McDonald's employee you don't recognize, especially near closing time, leave immediately. Do not finish your shift. They're not people. "I need to go," I said, already moving toward the exit. Ryan called after me, but I didn't stop. I pushed through the front doors and ran to my car, fumbling with the keys. As I pulled out of the parking space, my headlight swept across the side of the building, illuminating, just for an instant, a group of figures standing perfectly still, watching me leave. One of them looked exactly like Dave. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure in the bathroom, neck twisting at an impossible angle. I sat at my desk until dawn, staring at the photo I'd taken of the red stain, wondering if I should call the police. But what would I tell them? That I saw a ghost in a McDonald's bathroom? That my manager might not actually be my manager? That 2 co-workers had gone missing, and no one seemed to care? By morning, exhaustion had dulled my fear enough that I could think more clearly. I needed answers, and I needed to be smart about getting them. My shift wasn't until 5 p.m., which gave me time. I drove downtown to the Delaware County Library, where the free Wi-Fi wouldn't be connected to my personal accounts. I settled into a quiet corner and started searching. First, I looked up Melissa Martin's death. The local paper, the Delaware Gazette, had a small article. Local fast food employee found deceased. The official cause was listed as accidental hypothermia. The freezer had supposedly malfunctioned, trapping her inside. Her funeral had been held at Williams Funeral Home on West William Street, just a few blocks from where I was sitting. Next, I searched for anything about Katie Wilson. Nothing yet. But it had only been a day since she'd disappeared. Then I tried something else. McDonald's Delaware, Ohio history. Several results popped up, mostly mundane business listings and reviews. But one link caught my eye, a forum post on an Ohio paranormal investigation site from 3 years ago. Does anyone know anything about the McDonald's off Route 23 in Delaware? My sister worked there until last month when she quit suddenly. She won't talk about why she left, but she refuses to even drive past the place now. She mentioned something about rules they had to follow during night shifts. Seems like more than the usual corporate policies. There were a few replies, mostly dismissive, but one stood out. My cousin worked at that location in 2018. He said after they renovated the kitchen, weird things started happening. Voices coming from empty rooms, equipment turning on by itself. Manager implemented special safety protocols for night staff. My cousin quit after a co-worker disappeared. Police found her car at Polaris Mall 3 days later, but never found her. Polaris Mall was about 20 minutes south, just north of Columbus. A cold feeling settled in my stomach as I kept reading. That place was built on the old Greenwood Cemetery land. When they expanded the parking lot in 2016, construction crews found unmarked graves. Company hushed it up, reburied what they found somewhere else. Bad business to have your fries served over dead bodies. I'd never heard about this. The McDonald's had been there as long as I'd lived in Delaware. I checked the County Historical Society website, and sure enough, there was a mention of Greenwood Cemetery being relocated in the 1970s for commercial development along Route 23. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Coming to work tonight? A chill ran through me. I hadn't given my number to most of my coworkers. I didn't respond. Another text. We need to talk about what you saw. It's not what you think. Jasmine. That made more sense. She must have gotten my number from the employee contact list. I replied, where and when? The response came quickly. Panera on Sandusky Street. 1 p.m. Come alone. I had 3 hours to kill. I continued my research, digging into local news archives for any mention of strange happenings at that McDonald's location. There wasn't much. A health code violation in 2017, a small grease fire in 2019, but I did find something interesting in a community newsletter from 2016. There had been protests when the company had expanded the parking lot, led by a local historian who claimed the land still contained unmarked graves. The protests had died down after the historian, Edward Keller, had suddenly withdrawn his objections and moved away from the area. At 12:45, I headed to Panera. The lunch rush was tapering off, but the place was still busy enough that we wouldn't be overheard. I ordered a coffee and claimed a corner table with a view of the entrance. Jasmine arrived at 1:05, looking even more exhausted than she had last night. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, her hair hastily pulled back, dark shadows under her eyes. She scanned the room anxiously before spotting me. "Thanks for coming," she said, sliding into the seat opposite me. She hadn't ordered anything. "I don't have much time." "What's going on?" I asked. "What happened to Melissa?" "And Katie?" Jasmine glanced around again, then leaned forward. "They didn't follow the rules. The rules don't make any sense," I hissed. "Why do we have to close registers exactly at midnight? Why can't we use the bathroom between 12 and 5? "Because they're not our rules," she said. "They're theirs." "Whose?" "I don't know what to call them. They look like us, sound like us, but they're not people." Her voice cracked slightly. "They've been there since they started renovating, but it got worse after they expanded the parking lot, like something was disturbed." "The old cemetery," I said. She nodded. At first, it was just small things. Items moving when no one was around. Strange sounds from empty rooms. Then employees started seeing people who shouldn't be there. Doubles. Doubles? Like copies of us. I saw myself once, coming out of the break room when I was at the front counter. She shuddered. "Dave started the rules after the first disappearance. Said if we followed them, we'd be safe." "And you believe that?" "I didn't have a choice. People who broke the rules vanished. Or worse." She took a deep breath. "Melissa found something. She was researching like you. Said there was more to the rules than Dave was telling us. That's when she..." when they found her in the freezer. What did she find? Jasmine pulled out a small notebook and slid it across the table. This was in her locker, hidden in the lining of her jacket. I didn't give it to you last night because Dave was watching. I opened the notebook. The first several pages were filled with Melissa's neat handwriting, documenting strange occurrences at the restaurant. Dates, times, what happened. The later entries became increasingly alarmed. April 3rd saw Dave talking to himself in the office. Camera footage showed no one there but him. When I mentioned it, he said he'd been on the phone. He wasn't. April 7th. The night crew reported hearing children laughing in the play place at 3 a.m. It's been closed for renovation for weeks. April 10th. Found old newspaper clipping about Greenwood Cemetery. 157 bodies relocated in 1974. Records list 184 graves. Where are the other 27? April 15th. Something is wrong with Katie. She went into the freezer at 2:30 a.m. and stayed for 20 minutes. No coat. Said she needed to talk to them. When she came out, she was smiling. She doesn't smile. The final entry, dated the day before Melissa died, was written in a hurried scrawl. They're making copies of us. The doubles are taking over. They need the original to make a perfect copy. Then the original disappears. The rules keep us from interfering with the process. I think Dave is one of them now. I found the real 8th rule in the old manager's office. God help us. Did you find the 8th rule? I asked, looking up. Jasmine shook her head. I've been afraid to look. After what happened to Melissa, the note you gave me had an 8th rule written on it. I didn't write that. Her eyes widened. What did it say? I told her, and the blood drained from her face. That makes sense, she whispered. The night Melissa died, there was an employee I didn't recognize. I thought they were from another location, helping out. The next day, Dave told us Melissa was dead. My mind was racing. And last night, I saw Dave after Ryan told me he'd already left. They can only copy us at the restaurant, Jasmine said. That's why they can't let us leave if they've chosen us. That's what the rules are for, to keep us there at specific times, to isolate us one by one. So Katie, I think they got her last night. The real Katie. The one at work now probably isn't her. Jasmine checked her watch and stood abruptly. I have to go. I called in sick today, but Dave texted saying he needs me to come in at 2. If I don't show up, don't go, I urged. If what you're saying is true, I have to. My mom's in a care home in Marion. I'm all she has. If I lose this job, she shook her head. Just be careful, Alex. Don't break the rules, but don't let them get you alone, either. What about the police? Jasmine laughed bitterly. Officer Jenkins comes through the drive-thru every night at 1 a.m. Orders the same thing. Talks to Dave like they're old friends. Last week, I saw 2 of him. One at the window, one sitting in a booth inside. At the same time. She turned to leave, then paused. Check Melissa's notebook again. The back pages. After she left, I flipped to the back of the notebook. Several pages had been torn out, but on the inside of the back cover, something was written in tiny letters. The 8th rule is the only one that matters. They can't copy you without your permission. Don't give it. I stared at the words, a chill running through me despite the warm cafe. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. We need you to come in early today. Staff meeting at 4. Dave. And then another text, this one from Jasmine's number. Don't come to work tonight. Run. I sat in my car in the Panera parking lot, staring at the 2 contradictory messages on my phone. Dave wanted me to come in early. Jasmine, or someone using her phone, was telling me to run. The logical part of my brain said to listen to Jasmine, to drive to Columbus or Cleveland or anywhere that wasn't here. But two things stopped me. First, I couldn't afford to lose this job without having another lined up. Second, I couldn't leave without knowing what had happened to Melissa and Katie, and now possibly Jasmine. I called her number, straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result. It was 1:47 p.m. If I was going to the staff meeting at 4, I had time to do one more thing. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the Williams Funeral Home parking lot. The building was an old Victorian house, painted a dignified gray with white trim. A few cars were parked outside, an ongoing service probably. I smoothed my shirt and walked in, trying to look like I belonged. The interior was hushed and formal, with muted lighting and the faint smell of flowers and furniture polish. A woman in a dark suit approached. "May I help you?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice low. "I'm looking for information about a recent service. Melissa Martin? She was a friend from work, but I was out of town when she passed." The woman's expression softened with practiced sympathy. "Of course. Let me check our records." She went to a desk and typed something into a computer. After a moment, she frowned. "Martin, you said?" "Yes, Melissa Martin. It would have been about 2 weeks ago." More typing. "I'm sorry, we don't seem to have handled arrangements for anyone by that name recently." My stomach dropped. Could she have been at another funeral home? Possibly, though we're the main provider in Delaware. She looked at me more carefully. "Were you close to the deceased?" "Co-workers," I said. "At McDonald's on Route 23. I was told there was a service here." Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, then concern. "Just a moment," she said, and disappeared through a door behind the desk. While she was gone, I glanced at her computer screen. She'd left it open to the search results. No Melissa Martin listed, but at the bottom of the screen was a note. "See Manager I, Route 23 inquiries." The woman returned with an older man, bald with wire-rimmed glasses and a grave expression. "I'm Thomas Williams," he said, extending his hand. "My family has owned this funeral home for 3 generations. You had a question about a McDonald's employee?" I shook his hand. "Yes, Melissa Martin. I was told she had a service here after her accident at work." He studied me for a long moment. "Please, come to my office." I followed him down a hallway, past rooms prepared for viewings. His office was small but elegant, with dark wood furniture and framed certificates on the walls. "We did not handle arrangements for anyone named Melissa Martin," he said once we were seated. "In fact, we haven't handled arrangements for any McDonald's employees from that location in an official capacity." The way he emphasized official caught my attention. "What about unofficially?" Mr. Williams sighed and removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Young man, how long have you worked at that establishment?" 3 years. "And have you noticed anything unusual during your employment?" I hesitated, then decided to be direct. "Like employees disappearing? Or people who look exactly like other people? Or strange rules everyone has to follow?" He nodded solemnly. "My father first noticed it in the mid-1980s. The restaurant had been open about a decade by then. A night manager came to him, distressed about employees going missing, about seeing doubles of people. Dad thought he was suffering a breakdown. Until he saw 2 identical versions of the man in town on the same day, in different locations." Mr. Williams leaned forward. "That property has a troubled history. When they relocated the cemetery in '74, the company that did the work cut corners. Some remains were never properly moved. The missing 27 graves Melissa mentioned in her notebook. Likely more than that. Records from that era weren't well kept. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thin file. Over the years, I've kept track of unusual deaths connected to that location. Employees found in strange circumstances, bodies with unexplained anomalies. Like what? He hesitated. Like internal inconsistencies. Organs not quite right. Bones that seemed newer than they should be, as if the bodies were hastily constructed. A chill ran through me. The copies, the doubles. I've never known what to call them. He spread several papers on the desk. News clippings, obituaries, handwritten notes. Approximately every 3 years, there's a cluster of incidents. 3 to 6 employees disappear or die under mysterious circumstances. Then things go quiet again. And no one investigates? The police. Local authorities are either unaware or... He trailed off, then continued carefully. Or they've been compromised. I've sent anonymous tips to state investigators over the years, but without concrete evidence, they don't pursue it. I thought of what Jasmine had said about Officer Jenkins. Have you ever seen duplicates of local police? Mr. Williams's expression told me everything. I've said too much already. Why did you really come here today? I'm trying to understand what's happening. What happened to Melissa, to Katie Wilson, maybe to others? I'm scheduled to work tonight, and I need to know what I'm walking into. He gathered the papers back into the file. Don't go to that meeting. Don't return to that restaurant. Whatever is happening there, it's escalating. 3 employees in 2 weeks is unprecedented. 3? Who's the third? A manager, David Sullivan. His body was found in Alum Creek early this morning by a fisherman. Officials are calling it suicide. I froze. Dave's dead, but I've just got a text from him. Then whoever sent that message is not David Sullivan. Mr. Williams stood, indicating our conversation was over. Young man, what's your name? Alex. Alex Chen. Mr. Chen, I've watched this cycle repeat for decades. I've tried to warn people, to document what's happening, but it continues. The best advice I can give you is to leave, today. Go somewhere far from here, and don't look back. As I stood to leave, I noticed a photo on his wall, a much younger Thomas Williams, standing with another man in front of the funeral home. My father, he said, following my gaze. He passed in 2002. I'm sorry for your loss. He nodded absently, then seemed to make a decision. He opened another drawer and pulled out a small, tarnished silver crucifix on a chain. My father wore this every day of his adult life. When those things started appearing in town, he noticed something. They avoid certain religious symbols. Not all, but some. This one in particular seemed effective. He pressed it into my hand. I can't prove any of this. You probably think I'm a senile old man. But if you insist on going back there, take this. It may help. I slipped the crucifix into my pocket. Thank you. At the funeral home entrance, he gave me one last warning. Remember, they need your permission to copy you. Don't give it, no matter what form the question takes. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with another text from Dave. Meeting changed to 3:30. Don't be late. Important changes tonight. Shift rules. It was 3:15. I sat in my car, engine running, at a crossroads both literal and figurative. Turn left toward the McDonald's, or right toward my apartment to pack a bag and leave town. The crucifix felt heavy in my pocket. Melissa's notebook sat on the passenger seat. I thought about Katie's empty car in the Target parking lot, about Jasmine's warning text, about Dave's body being found in the creek, while Dave was still texting me. I put the car in drive and made my decision. I drove toward the McDonald's. Mr. Williams would have called me a fool, and maybe I was, but I couldn't leave without answers. I couldn't leave knowing that whatever was happening might continue. that more Melissas and Katies and Daves would disappear while their doubles took their places. I parked at the far end of the lot near Target, where I could watch the restaurant without being easily spotted. The silver crucifix hung around my neck now, hidden under my shirt. Melissa's notebook was tucked into my back pocket. The McDonald's looked completely normal in the afternoon sunlight. The drive-thru lane had a steady stream of cars. Customers entered and exited through the front doors. Nothing to suggest anything supernatural was happening inside. I checked the time. 3:28 p.m. The staff meeting would be starting soon. Through the large windows, I could see employees gathering in the dining area. Trent was there, along with Ryan and Mike. A woman with a ponytail who looked like Jasmine sat with her back to the window. A man I didn't recognize, tall, with dark hair, stood at the head of the table, gesturing as he spoke. That must be the Dave who had texted me. As I watched, the man turned slightly, giving me a profile view of his face. It was Dave's face, but something about it seemed wrong, like a mask that didn't quite fit. I ducked lower in my seat as his gaze swept the parking lot. Was he looking for me? My phone buzzed with another text. "Where are you?" Meeting started. I didn't respond. Instead, I started taking photos with my phone's camera. Of the gathering. Of Dave. Of each employee, I could see clearly through the window. Maybe the photos would show something the naked eye couldn't. After a few minutes, the employees began to disperse, returning to their stations. The meeting was over, and I hadn't shown up. I slid down further in my seat, worried about being spotted now that they'd likely be looking for me. That's when I noticed Katie's car, still parked in the same spot near the Target entrance where Trent had said it was. On impulse, I got out of my car and walked over to it. The blue Honda Civic was locked, but peering through the windows, I could see nothing unusual. Just some fast food wrappers on the passenger seat, a Delaware State University parking pass hanging from the rearview mirror, and a gym bag in the back seat. Then I noticed something odd. The car was covered in a fine layer of dust, as if it had been sitting there for days, but there were handprints on the driver's side window, handprints that seemed to be pressing from the inside. I stepped back, my skin crawling. That wasn't possible. There was no one in the car. As I stared, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, a voice spoke behind me. "She's not in there, if that's what you're wondering." I spun around. It was Ryan, the new employee, standing a few feet away. His McDonald's visor sat askew on his blonde hair, his expression unreadable. "Jesus, you scared me," I gasped, heart pounding. "What are you doing out here?" "Looking for you," he said simply. "You missed the meeting." I took a step back, putting more distance between us. I got held up. "Dave's pissed." Ryan glanced toward the McDonald's. "He says if you don't show for your shift, you're fired." "Dave's dead," I said, watching his reaction carefully. "His body was found in Alum Creek this morning." Ryan's face didn't change. "That's dark, man. Not the kind of thing you should joke about." "I'm not joking." He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. "Whatever. Are you coming in or not? We're short-staffed since Katie didn't show up again." I needed to know if Ryan was one of them, one of the doubles. I fingered the crucifix under my shirt, remembering what Mr. Williams had said about them avoiding religious symbols. "I forgot something in my car," I said, pulling the crucifix out so it was visible. "Want to walk with me?" Ryan's eyes flicked to the silver cross, then back to my face. No reaction. Now, I'd better get back in. Break's almost over. He turned and headed toward the restaurant, calling over his shoulder, "5 minutes, Alex, or Dave's giving your shift to someone else." That hadn't told me anything conclusive. Either Ryan was human, or the crucifix wasn't as effective as Mr. Williams had believed. I returned to my car, my mind racing. I could drive away now, find a new job in Columbus, pretend none of this had happened. But as I sat there, a new text came through, this time from Trent. "Dude, where are you? Dave's brother is here asking questions about you." Dave's brother? Dave was an only child. I'd heard him mention it once when we were discussing holiday plans. I texted back, "Who's Dave's brother?" The reply came quickly. "Some corporate guy. Looks just like Dave but with glasses. Keeps asking when you were last here." A cold certainty settled over me. They were looking for me. The real Dave was dead, and now his double and another double, a brother who hadn't existed yesterday, were trying to track me down. Making a decision, I started my car and drove to the far side of the shopping center, where I'd be out of sight of the McDonald's. I needed more information before I went in there. I called Jasmine again, still straight to voicemail. Next, I tried a different approach. I pulled up the Delaware Police Department's non-emergency number and called. "Delaware Police, how can I help you?" A female voice answered. "Hi, I'm calling to see if there's any information available about a body found in Alum Creek this morning. I heard it might be my manager, Dave Sullivan." A brief pause. "One moment, please." After about 30 seconds, a male voice came on the line. "This is Officer Jenkins. Who am I speaking with?" My blood ran cold. Jenkins, the officer Jasmine had said she'd seen doubles of. "Sorry, wrong number," I said quickly and hung up. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to calm my racing heart. Jenkins had been just a name to me before. A random cop who liked McDonald's drive-thru. Now he was a direct threat. My phone buzzed again with a text from an unknown number. "We know you're still in the parking lot, Alex. Come inside and we can talk." Dave. How did they know I was still here? I scanned the area around me. No one was visible, but there were security cameras on the light poles throughout the parking lot. Could they access those? Another text from the same number. "We just want to talk. No one's going to hurt you. There's been a misunderstanding." And another, "You're scheduled until midnight. You know the rules. Employees who don't show up for shifts face consequences." I thought about the rules again, especially the ones that kept employees in the restaurant at specific times. The registers closed at exactly midnight. Not before, not after. The bathrooms locked between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. Never enter the freezer alone between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. They were all designed to isolate employees, to get them alone at specific times and places. And that gave me an idea. I checked the time, 4:30 p.m. My shift was supposed to start at 5. If I showed up, followed the rules, but never allowed myself to be isolated, I might be able to gather the evidence I needed while staying safe. It was a terrible plan, full of risks, but it was a plan. I drove back toward the McDonald's and parked in the employee section. As I walked toward the entrance, I texted Jake. "If you don't hear from me by 1 a.m., call the Ohio State Police and tell them to check the McDonald's on Route 23. Not Delaware Police, State Police." Jake responded almost immediately. I didn't have time to explain. Just do it. Life or death serious. Before I went inside, I took a deep breath, making sure the crucifix was secure around my neck, but hidden under my shirt. I had Melissa's notebook in my pocket, and my phone fully charged. I'd stay in public areas, keep customers or multiple employees around me at all times, and I'd document everything. As I pushed through the door, the familiar smell of French fries and disinfectant hit me. Trent was at the front counter, his eyes widening when he saw me. "Dude, where have you been?" he hissed as I walked past. "Got held up?" I said vaguely. "Dave in his office?" Trent nodded. "With his brother. They've been asking about you all afternoon." I headed for the break room to clock in, deliberately avoiding the manager's office. As I rounded the corner, I nearly collided with Dave, who was emerging from the bathroom. Up close, the wrongness was more apparent. His face was Dave's, but his expressions didn't match his words, like watching a badly dubbed movie. His eyes were slightly too shiny, and his skin had an artificial smoothness to it. "Alex," he said, his mouth forming a smile while his eyes remained cold. "We missed you at the meeting." "Sorry, car trouble," I lied. "Had to get a jump start." He nodded, the motion too precise. "No problem. But there have been some policy changes you need to be aware of. Come to my office after you clock in." "Sure thing," I agreed, with no intention of being alone with him in an office. In the break room, Ryan was sitting at the table, scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up as I clocked in. "Decided to show up after all, huh?" he said. "Couldn't afford to lose the job," I replied, which was true enough. As I was putting my jacket in my locker, I noticed Jasmine's locker was open and empty. All her personal items, the photo of her mom, her spare shoes, her coffee mug, were gone. "Where's Jasmine?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Ryan shrugged. "Transferred to the Polaris location," Dave said. "Effective immediately." Polaris, where the other missing employee's car had been found years ago, according to the Forum Post. My stomach twisted. When I came out of the break room, Dave was waiting, along with another man who looked remarkably like him, but with sleeker hair and glasses, the invented brother. "Alex, this is Richard," Dave said. "He's helping us implement some new safety protocols after the unfortunate incidents recently." Richard extended his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Alex. Dave's told me what a reliable employee you are." I shook his hand reluctantly. It was cold and slightly damp, like raw chicken. "We'd like to go over the new protocols with you," Richard continued, "in private." "Actually, I'm scheduled for front register right now," I said, backing away. "Trent's been alone up there during the dinner rush." Dave's smile tightened. "This won't take long." "Sorry, don't want to leave him in the weeds," I insisted, turning and heading toward the front counter before either of them could stop me. For the next hour, I stayed firmly planted at Register 1, taking orders from a steady stream of customers. Dave and Richard watched from near the drink station, occasionally whispering to each other. Whenever the line died down, one of them would start to approach, so I'd deliberately engage the nearest customer in conversation to stay public. During a brief lull, Trent leaned over to me. "What's with you and management today? You're acting weird." "Just trying to do my job well," I said. "Well, heads up. I heard Dave telling Richard they're changing the schedule. You're closing tonight, solo." A chill ran through me. "That's against policy. We always have at least 2 closers." "Not anymore, apparently." Trent glanced nervously at Dave and Richard. "New rules." As if on cue, Dave approached the counter, that wrong smile still on his face. "Alex, when you get a moment, we need to discuss your schedule change." It was happening. They were trying to isolate me, to get me alone in the restaurant overnight. I glanced at the wall clock. 6:37 p.m. More than 5 hours until midnight. I needed to buy time, stay public, and figure out a way to either gather evidence or escape before I became the next Melissa, the next Katie, the next Dave. The dinner rush began in earnest, giving me a legitimate reason to stay at the register. Dave and Richard retreated to the office, but I could feel them watching me through the security camera mounted above the drink station. At 8 p.m., Mike arrived for his shift, his face haggard and eyes bloodshot. He barely acknowledged me as he clocked in and took over the drive-thru. "Mike," I said when he passed by to get drink cups, "have you heard from Jasmine today?" He glanced around nervously before replying. Got a text saying she transferred to Polaris. Did that seem odd to you? She never mentioned wanting to transfer. Mike's eyes darted toward the office. Don't ask questions, Alex, he whispered. Just follow the rules. Before I could press him further, Richard emerged from the office, heading straight for us. Mike, I need you to do inventory in the stockroom, he said, his voice pleasant but firm. Alex can handle drive-thru and counter by himself for a bit. It was a blatant attempt to separate us. Mike nodded obediently and headed for the back. Actually, I countered, corporate policy says we need 2 people on front end during business hours. Safety reasons. Richard's smile tightened. I am corporate Alex, and policies change. Of course, I said, backing down. Just trying to follow the rules. His eyes narrowed slightly at my emphasis on rules, but he merely nodded and returned to the office. As soon as he was gone, I whispered to Trent, who was restocking napkins nearby. Something's seriously wrong here. Dave, the real Dave, is dead. Jasmine's missing. And now they're trying to get everyone separated. Trent looked at me like I was insane. Dude, what are you talking about? Dave's in his office and Jasmine transferred. That's not Dave, I insisted. And Jasmine didn't transfer. She texted me this morning telling me not to come to work. To run. He took a step back from me. Maybe you should go home, Alex. You sound like you're having some kind of breakdown. I realized how I must sound. Paranoid, delusional. But I knew what I'd learned from Mr. Williams, from Melissa's notebook, from Jasmine. Look, I said, lowering my voice. Just be careful tonight, okay? Don't let yourself be alone with Dave or Richard, especially near closing time. Whatever, man. Trent shook his head and walked away, clearly dismissing me as crazy. I couldn't blame him. If someone had come to me with this story 2 days ago, I'd have reacted the same way. The evening wore on. I maintained a careful vigilance, always making sure I was either with customers or in view of multiple co-workers. Whenever Dave or Richard tried to get me alone, I'd find a task that needed immediate attention in a public area. At 10 p.m., Dave made his move. He approached the counter where I was wiping down the drink station. Alex, we need to discuss your closing duties for tonight, he said. In my office, please. Actually, can we talk here? I suggested. I'm in the middle of pre-closing tasks. Dave's face twitched, an unnatural movement that sent chills down my spine. My office, now. I glanced around. The dining area was still half full of customers. Mike was at drive-thru. Trent was mopping the lobby floor. I was safe for the moment. Let me just finish this first, I stalled. Health department guidelines, you know. Dave's eyes hardened, but he maintained his artificial smile. 5 minutes then. Not a second longer. As soon as he walked away, I pulled out my phone and did something desperate. I texted Jake again. Emergency. Call McDonald's on Route 23 in 3 minutes. Ask for Alex. Say it's a family emergency. I had no idea if he'd see the text in time, but it was worth a shot. 4 minutes later, as Dave was emerging from his office looking for me, the store phone rang. Trent answered it, then held it out to me. For you. Some guy named Jake. Says it's an emergency. I took the phone, relief washing over me. Hello? Dude, what the hell is going on? Jake demanded. Your texts are freaking me out. Grandma's in the hospital, I said loudly, for Dave's benefit. When? How bad is it? Jake, bless him, caught on immediately. Yeah, man, it's bad. You should probably come right away. I'll be there as soon as I can, I promised, then covered the mouthpiece and looked at Dave. My grandmother's been taken to the hospital. Heart attack. I need to go. Dave's smile vanished completely. Impossible. We're already short-staffed. You're scheduled until midnight. It's my grandmother. I insisted, putting as much emotion into my voice as I could. She raised me. Your mother is Chinese and your father is Jewish, Dave said flatly. Your grandmother lives in Taiwan. You've mentioned this before. My blood ran cold. The real Dave knew that, yes. But I'd never mentioned it to this Dave, the imposter. Look, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Family emergency. I have to go. No. The word was final, inhuman in its inflection. Your shift ends at midnight. 1 second before, 1 second after, and there will be consequences. Rule 1 flashed in my mind. All registers must be closed exactly at midnight. Not before, not after. I understand, I said, feigning submission. Let me just tell my cousin I'll be there later. I put the phone back to my ear. Jake, I can't leave until midnight. Tell Grandma to hang on, okay? I'll be there as soon as I can. I lowered my voice, hoping Dave couldn't hear. Call state police. Not local. Now. I hung up before Jake could respond. Dave was watching me with those wrong eyes, calculating. Back to work, he said. You'll be closing alone tonight. Trent and Mike will leave at 11:30. So they were planning to isolate me for those critical minutes around midnight. Whatever happened to the others, whatever the copying process was, it must happen then. Got it, I said, returning to the register. For the next hour, I served the dwindling number of customers while frantically trying to think of a way out. My phone was in my pocket, secretly recording audio. If nothing else, maybe it would capture something, some evidence of what happened here. At 11:15, Richard emerged from the back and pulled Dave aside. They had an intense conversation, with Richard gesturing toward me several times. Something had changed in their plans. When they finished talking, Dave approached me again. Change of schedule. You're not closing tonight after all. You're free to leave at 11:45. I didn't trust this sudden change of heart for a second. What about registers? They have to be closed at midnight, not before, not after. Mike will handle it tonight, Dave said smoothly. You've had a stressful day. Go see your grandmother. This was wrong. They were breaking their own rules. Why? As I pondered this, I noticed something through the front windows. Police lights, flashing in the distance, coming down Route 23. Jake had come through. Relief flooded me. But Dave and Richard had seen the lights too. Their expressions changed in identical ways. Alarm, then determination. Alex, Richard said sharply. We need you in the freezer. Emergency inventory before you go. Right now? With customers still here? I gestured to the 3 people still in the lobby. Right now, Dave confirmed, moving toward me with purpose. Rule 5 echoed in my mind. Never enter the walk-in freezer alone between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. It wasn't between those hours yet, but the freezer was clearly important to them. It was where they'd found Melissa. Let me just finish this order, I said, turning back to the teenager waiting at the counter. Dave's hand clamped down on my arm, his fingers digging in with inhuman strength. Now, Alex. The police lights were closer now, maybe a quarter mile away. If I could stall for just 2 more minutes. I need to use the bathroom first, I blurted, pulling away from Dave's grip. No, Dave and Richard said in unison, their voices overlapping in perfect synchronization. I backed away from them, bumping into the counter. The teenager waiting for his order stared at us with wide eyes. Hey, he said, everything okay here? No, I said loudly. Everything is not okay. These men are not who they appear to be. They're involved in disappearances, maybe murders. The teenager took a step back, clearly thinking I was having a mental breakdown. Dave seized the opportunity. "I'm so sorry," he said to the teen. "My employee is having a psychiatric episode. We've called for help." He turned to me, voice hardening. "Alex, go to the office and calm down. Now." "No," I refused, staying firmly in the public area. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The police lights had reached the turn into the shopping center. Any moment now, they'd pull into the parking lot. Dave and Richard exchanged glances. Then Richard nodded once and headed swiftly toward the back. Dave maintained his position, blocking me from the exit. "Alex," he said, voice suddenly gentle, "we just want to talk. There's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," I repeated incredulously. "Like Melissa? Like Katie? Like the real Dave whose body was found in Alum Creek this morning?" The remaining customers were openly staring now, some recording with their phones. Good. Witnesses. Dave's face contorted with an expression that wasn't quite anger. More like a computer attempting to simulate anger. "You don't understand what's happening here." "Then explain it," I challenged, watching as the police car finally pulled into the parking lot. "Explain why employees keep disappearing. Explain why you're pretending to be Dave Sullivan when the real Dave is dead." The police car parked, and 2 officers got out. One of them, Officer Jenkins. My moment of hope evaporated. Jasmine had warned me about Jenkins, had said she'd seen doubles of him. I'd specifically asked Jake to call the state police, not local. Dave smiled then, a real smile that was somehow more terrifying than his artificial ones had been. "Ah, Officer Jenkins, right on time." As the officers entered, the customers seemed to relax, assuming the authorities would handle the situation. I knew better. "What seems to be the problem here?" Jenkins asked, though his eyes, fixed on me, suggested he already knew. "This employee is having a severe psychological episode," Dave explained smoothly. "Paranoid delusions, making threats. We're concerned for his safety and others." Jenkins nodded, unsurprised. "Let's all calm down and talk in the office, shall we?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm not going anywhere private with any of you." "Son," Jenkins said, hand moving to rest on his holstered weapon, "I'm not asking." The second officer, younger and seemingly genuinely concerned, stepped forward. "Why don't you tell us what's going on from your perspective?" I hesitated. Was this officer real or another copy? Either way, I had to try. "Employees from this McDonald's have been disappearing," I said rapidly. "Melissa Martin 2 weeks ago, supposedly found dead in the freezer. Katie Wilson yesterday, her car still in the parking lot. And Dave Sullivan." I pointed at fake Dave. "The real Dave Sullivan's body was found in Alum Creek this morning." The younger officer frowned. "We haven't had any report of a body found in Alum Creek." My certainty wavered. Had Mr. Williams lied to me? Or was this all more complicated than I'd thought? Jenkins stepped forward. "Alex Chen, we're going to take you somewhere safe. You're clearly experiencing a mental health crisis." As he reached for me, his sleeve rode up, revealing his wrist. And there, barely visible, was a strange mark on his skin. A symbol, like the ones Melissa had drawn in her notebook. I knew then I couldn't let them take me. In that moment, with Jenkins reaching for me and the younger officer looking confused, I made a split-second decision. I bolted toward the kitchen. "Stop him!" Jenkins shouted, but I was already pushing through the swinging doors. Mike was at the drive-thru window, frozen in shock as I raced past. I had no plan beyond getting away from Jenkins, but I knew the kitchen layout better than most. 3 years of closing shifts had made sure of that. Behind me, I heard the doors slam open as Jenkins followed. I darted around the fry station, nearly slipping on the greasy floor, and headed for the back exit. "Alex, stop!" Mike called out, but there was fear in his voice. Not concern, As I rounded the corner by the grill, I collided with Richard, who had been coming from the manager's office. The impact sent us both sprawling onto the hard tiles. My phone skidded away across the floor, still recording. Richard recovered faster than I did, lunging and grabbing my ankle as I tried to scramble away. His hand was ice cold, his grip inhumanly strong. "It would have been easier if you'd cooperated," he hissed, his face inches from mine. Up close, I could see imperfections in his skin, not pores or natural blemishes, but tiny seams, as if his face had been assembled in pieces. I kicked out with my free leg, connecting solidly with his jaw. There was a sickening crack, but not the sound of bone, more like breaking plastic. Richard's head snapped sideways at an impossible angle, nearly 180 degrees, but he didn't let go. Instead, he smiled, his teeth too white and uniform, and slowly rotated his head back to face me, the grinding sound making my stomach lurch. "You can't hurt us that way," he said softly. Jenkins burst around the corner, weapon drawn. "Freeze!" he shouted. I used Richard's momentary distraction to yank free and scramble to my feet. The back exit was only 15 feet away, past the walk-in freezer. The freezer door suddenly swung open. Dave stood there, blocking my escape route, his face now completely devoid of any attempt at human expression. "Inside," he said, gesturing to the freezer. "Now." "No." I backed away, only to bump into Jenkins, who had circled behind me. I was trapped. That's when salvation came from an unexpected source. What the hell is going on? The younger officer had followed Jenkins into the kitchen and was staring in horror at Richard, who was still on the floor, his head now tilting at an unnatural angle as he slowly climbed to his feet. "Officer Brooks," Jenkins said smoothly, "this is a situation that requires discretion. I'll handle it from here. You can return to the patrol car." Brooks didn't move. His hand had gone to his weapon. "You said this was a mental health call. Why is your gun drawn on an unarmed civilian?" His eyes flicked to Richard. "And what's wrong with him?" I seized the moment of confusion. "They're not human," I blurted out. "They've been replacing people. Melissa, Katie, Dave, they're copies." Brooks looked skeptical, but his attention was now fully on Richard, whose movements as he stood were jerky and wrong, like a marionette with tangled strings. "Officer Jenkins," Brooks said carefully, "I'm calling for backup." Jenkins sighed. I was hoping to avoid this. In one fluid motion, he turned his weapon toward Brooks. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I lunged sideways, rolling across the prep table and landing on the other side just as a gunshot rang out. Officer Brooks cried out in pain. Jenkins had shot his partner. Chaos erupted. The few remaining customers in the lobby began screaming. Mike abandoned the drive-thru window and ran. Dave and Richard moved toward Jenkins, who was advancing on the wounded Brooks. I had only seconds. I spotted my phone on the floor where it had fallen and grabbed it, shoving it into my pocket. Then I sprinted for the one place they might not expect me to go, the walk-in freezer. The heavy door closed behind me with a solid thunk. There was no lock on the inside, against fire code, but I grabbed a rack of frozen hamburger patties and wedged it against the door. It wouldn't hold them for long. The freezer was dimly lit and silent, except for the low hum of the cooling system. Shelves of frozen food lined the walls, and a thin layer of frost covered everything. This was where they'd found Melissa. I scanned the space, searching for anything that might help me understand what was happening or give me a way out. In the back corner, almost hidden behind the stack of boxes, I noticed something odd. A section of wall that seemed slightly discolored compared to the rest. I pushed the boxes aside to reveal what looked like a maintenance hatch, about 3 feet square, sealed around the edges with some kind of dark, resinous substance. The substance wasn't frost or mold. It moved slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if breathing. Something slammed against the freezer door, rattling the metal rack I'd placed against it. I didn't have much time. I pulled out my phone, relieved to see it was still recording, and documented the strange hatch, saying aloud, "I'm in the walk-in freezer at McDonald's, Route 23, Delaware, Ohio. There's some kind of hidden door or hatch that seems to be sealed with something alive." Another slam against the door, harder this time. The rack shifted an inch. I'd never noticed this hatch during inventory counts or cleaning. It wasn't on any of the store blueprints I'd seen. Whatever it was, it didn't belong here. On impulse, I reached out and touched the dark substance around the edges. It was cold, but not freezing, warmer than the surrounding freezer, as if generating its own heat. And it pulsed beneath my fingertips, recoiling slightly from my touch. "Jesus," I whispered, pulling my hand back quickly. That's when I noticed the markings etched into the metal of the hatch, symbols similar to the one I'd glimpsed on Jenkins's wrist. They formed a circle around what appeared to be a handle. The door behind me gave way with a crash. I spun around to see Jenkins, Dave, and Richard entering the freezer, advancing slowly, confidently. They knew I was trapped. "You've caused quite a mess, Alex," Jenkins said, his voice eerily calm. "But it can still be fixed." "What are you?" I demanded, pressing myself back against the wall beside the strange hatch. "What happened to the real Dave? To Melissa and Katie?" "We are the improvement," Richard replied. "A necessary evolution." "We need bodies," Dave added, his voice now completely different, deeper, with an odd resonance. "Your world is compatible. Your forms are useful. The process requires permission," Jenkins continued. "The rules ensure separation at the required times. The copies require proximity to the original at precisely midnight for the transfer to complete." Understanding dawned. "The registers closing exactly at midnight. The bathroom locks. The freezer off limits between 2 and 4 a.m. You were making sure we were where you needed us to be." Dave nodded. "Melissa discovered the entry point." He gestured to the hatch behind me. "She didn't give permission, so we had to modify the process. Less efficient, more messy." "And Katie?" "She gave permission," Richard said. "She didn't understand what she was agreeing to, but consent was obtained." A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the freezer temperature. "And the real Dave?" Jenkins smiled coldly. "Declined. Most inconvenient. But we've improved our methods since then." They had formed a half circle around me now, blocking any path to the door. "Your turn now, Alex," Dave said. "Do you consent to the improvement?" The 8th rule from Melissa's note flashed in my mind. "They can't copy you without your permission. Don't give it." "No," I said firmly. "I do not consent. Not now. Not ever." Their expressions didn't change, but the temperature in the freezer seemed to drop several degrees instantly. "Permission can be encouraged," Richard said. His arm suddenly extended toward me, the joints bending in ways that human anatomy didn't allow. His fingers elongated, becoming thin, pointed appendages. I pressed harder against the wall, the crucifix around my neck suddenly burning cold against my skin. As Richard's distorted hand neared my face, I yanked the silver cross out from under my shirt and thrust it forward. The reaction was immediate and unexpected. Richard recoiled as if burned, his malformed hand snapping back to normal dimensions. "Interesting," Jenkins observed, "an old superstition that still holds some power." But the momentary advantage was already fading. Dave and Jenkins were unaffected, continuing their advance. "You can't escape," Dave said. "Even if you leave this place, we've spread." Delaware, Columbus, Cincinnati, soon all of Ohio, then beyond. Why here? I asked, desperately trying to buy time. Why a McDonald's in Delaware, Ohio? The barrier is thin here, Jenkins replied. The improperly relocated dead created a doorway. The old cemetery, the 27 missing graves. Melissa had been right. Your permission, Alex, Dave insisted, now just 3 feet away. It can be quick, painless, or it can be like Melissa, like Dave Sullivan. My back was literally against the wall. The crucifix had bought me seconds, not minutes. I had one desperate move left. I turned and grabbed the handle on the strange hatch, pulling with all my strength. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dark living sealant around the edges began to writhe and retract, pulling away from the metal. The hatch swung open with surprising ease. A blast of fetid hot air escaped from the opening, carrying with it a smell that defied description. Not rot or decay, but something alien, chemical, wrong. Beyond the hatch was no mechanical space or hidden room. Instead, I found myself staring into what appeared to be a vertical tunnel, its walls pulsating with the same dark, living material that had sealed the hatch. Faint greenish light emanated from deep below, illuminating what looked disturbingly like bone-white branches or tendrils extending up from the depths. "No!" Jenkins shouted, genuine alarm in his voice. "Close it! It's not time!" I understood then. This wasn't their doorway. This was something else, something perhaps even they feared. Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone, still recording, and held it up to capture the nightmare tunnel, the approaching copies, everything. "Evidence," I said, backing toward the open hatch. "Whatever happens to me, people will know." "You don't understand what you're doing," Dave warned, a new urgency in his voice. "That's not for you, not for any human." "Stay back," I ordered, clutching the crucifix in one hand, my phone in the other. "Or I'll drop this down there." I held the phone over the opening. "I'm guessing whatever's down there might be interested in what's been happening up here." They froze, exchanging glances. For the first time, I saw something like fear in their perfect wrong faces. And that's when I heard the sirens. That was 3 months ago. I'm writing this from a hospital in Cleveland, 3 counties away from Delaware. The doctors call it acute stress disorder with psychotic features. They don't believe me, of course. No one does, except Mr. Williams, who visits every Sunday, and Jake, who smuggled in this laptop against hospital regulations. The official story is that I had a mental breakdown and attacked several McDonald's employees before barricading myself in the freezer. Officer Jenkins was a hero who de-escalated the situation despite his partner being accidentally wounded in the confusion. Officer Brooks is still in physical therapy, recovering from a gunshot that shattered his right shoulder. No one mentions the hatch I found. No one believes it existed. When the state police finally arrived, responding to Jake's frantic calls, they found me alone in the freezer, raving about copies and creatures and tunnels. The back wall was solid, they said. No hatch, no moving substance, no pulsating tunnel. My phone, which had recorded everything, was damaged beyond repair. Water damage, they claimed, from the freezer condensation. Dave, Richard, and Jenkins were all interviewed and cleared of any wrongdoing. The McDonald's reopened a week later, business as usual. But I know what I saw. I know what happened. When the state police burst into the freezer, Jenkins and the others had vanished, melting away into the darkness beyond the walk-in shelves and racks. The hatch had closed itself, the living sealant hardening rapidly. By the time I'd tried to show the officers, it looked just like a normal wall, the symbols and handle gone as if they'd never existed. Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, I can still hear their voices. The copies. The things pretending to be Dave and Richard and Jenkins. Whispering to me, asking for my permission, promising it won't hurt if I just say yes. Mr. Williams says I'm safe as long as I never consent. He brings me religious symbols from different faiths each visit. Crosses, stars, crescents, intricate knots, saying diversity of protection is essential. Some of them seem to help with the whispers more than others. I've been tracking the news from Delaware. 3 more McDonald's employees have gone missing since my incident. Their families received texts saying they'd moved away suddenly for better opportunities. No one questions it. Jake tells me there's a new night shift rule at the Route 23 McDonald's now. 8. Do not mention the name Alex Chin inside the restaurant at any time, for any reason. Jasmine's body was found last week in a drainage ditch near Polaris Mall, just like the Forum Post had mentioned happening to another employee years ago. The news called it a suicide. Her mother is devastated, confused. Jasmine had been sending her money every month to pay for her care home. Now she has nothing. I dream about the hatch sometimes, about what I glimpsed down that pulsating tunnel, the bone-white tendrils reaching upward, the greenish light. I'm not sure if it was their way in or something else entirely, something even they feared. I'm being released next week. The doctors think their medications have stabilized me because I've stopped talking about what happened. They think I've accepted their reality. I haven't. I've been making plans, gathering information. Mr. Williams has put me in touch with others who've encountered the copies in different places across Ohio. There are more of us than I thought. We're going to expose them, whatever they are. I know the risks. I know how this sounds. But I also know the rules now. And rule number 8, Melissa's hidden rule, is the key to everything. They can't copy you without your permission. Don't give it. Remember that. If you ever find yourself working the night shift at McDonald's, or anywhere really, because they're spreading, and they're hungry for more than just fast food.